Hello and welcome to Talk a Good Game and to preview of West Ham United against Huddersfield Town. Two teams who are not very well on the road. Fortunately for West Ham, we are at home looking for our third win in the road at London Stadium for the first time ever. Gonzo, what's your thoughts on our opponents, Huddersfield?
I don't have an awful lot of thoughts on Huddersfield, to be perfectly honest with you, mate, because I don't know an awful lot about them. Obviously, every time we've played them in the Premier League, they've looked pretty poor. But last season was twice, and this season they seem to, look a little bit better. Having said that, they got rid of their manager. They're languishing at the bottom with 14 points. And just when I was looking at the stats and doing my research earlier, they have used the joint most players in the league. So I wonder how much that has to play on it. The fact that they've not been able to put a settled team out. I think sacking their manager was a bad thing to do as well, Geo. He did a miracle in getting them up, a miracle in keeping them up. And surely when it looked like they were about to go down, the thing would have been to keep him on, because I'm pretty sure he would have at least got them to the playoffs again. Now I don't know. They look like one of those clubs who are going to get relegated from the Premier League and not come back for a very, very long time, if ever.
I don't think they sacked him, though. I think it was a mutual thing.
Really?
I think he, to be honest, but what I gathered was I think he got to the point where he thought, well, we're going down kind of thing. I've done all I can at Huddersfield. There's nothing more I can do. So it was a mutual thing. And I think it's just a case of Wagner said, well, you need to go find a manager who's going to manage you next year in the Championship because there's no way this team's staying up, kind of thing. And the stat about you mentioned there, they've used more players in Premier League than anyone else. You said they can't get a settled team out. Do you think that's also maybe an indication that the players are just not good enough and the managers are not too happy with the players they've got available, so they have to keep chopping and changing and hoping a little bit of luck comes into play almost?
Yeah, I mean, it may well do, but I think what hasn't helped is Moy is their best player, isn't he, Aaron Moy? And I don't think he's been available for a lot of the season. I think he's certainly suffered his fair share of injuries. So you're probably sort of grasping at things, aren't you, when you're down languishing down the league and trying to swap things around. But I do look at the teams that you'd probably think would get relegated, but actually end up surviving. And they do tend to put out quite settled teams. So, yeah, I think they probably have chopped and changed looking to get wins, but I don't think that's necessarily the best thing to do.
Yeah, I think last season was a fairy tale for them staying up. I think it was just a good an achievement, or actually, I think it was a better achievement than Pep Guardiola winning the league with Manchester City. I thought Wagner should have won Manager of the Year, perhaps. Unfortunately for him, Sean Dyche was doing something remarkable with Burnley at the same time. It was just, I don't know, sort of enjoy it while it lasts in the Premier League because they don't have the players or the resources to stay in the Premier League. It's just a shame, really. And it's a club that I would have liked to have seen stay up. And I kind of hope they do come back up. But do you think they'll come back up? I mean, arguably, I would argue that actually getting promoted from the Championship is possibly more difficult than staying in the Premier League for Huddersfield because they're expected to go down. There's no pressure on Huddersfield. They're relegation favourites, etc. But when they go down, a bit like we've seen teams like Swansea, etc., when you go down, you're automatically made favourites to come back up again. And it's possibly the toughest league in the world.
Yeah, I can't see it, Gio, because the teams that do get relegated, so let's use Cardiff as an example, because Cardiff are down there. Let's say Cardiff got relegated. They are the players in Cardiff's team, like Bamba, the geezer up front whose name escapes me, who's they got him from Bristol City.
Bobby Reid.
Him, Hoylett. These are good players. Probably not good enough for other Premier League teams to come in and get them. So they would probably stay with Cardiff in the Premier League and in the Championship, which would give them a hell of an advantage. You could say the same for Southampton. If Southampton were to go down, they would keep a core number of players. You're not going to get Manchester City. You're not going to come in for Nathan Redmond or anything like that. They might have to sell Ward-Prowse or something like that, but there'll be a core of players who are good enough to get them out of the Championship. I just don't see that with Huddersfield. I don't think they've got those superstar Championship players, if you like.
No, I have to agree with that one. Well, speaking of lack of superstars, who do you see as their main players for Saturday?
I only really know Moy, and that's what I was saying to you before. I don't know an awful lot about them, and obviously they did well against us earlier on in the season, but last season they looked horrendous. I thought when we played them. Moy looks good. Was it Pritchard? I think it was Pritchard that scored against us before, but I couldn't think of any massive highlight reel of Pritchard or anybody else for that matter. And that's probably the problem, like you alluded to before we went on air. They don't really have anyone that's excelling. They don't really have anyone who, when you watch Match of the Day, stands out and you think, oh, he's good. If he'll get a move if they get transferred. So do they have any danger men? Probably not, and that's probably why they got 14 points.
The player I like is Billing. I really like Billing. I'd love to see him at West Ham. I'll be surprised if he's at Huddersfield in the Championship next season. I think he's got everything really. He's energetic. He'll box to box. I think it's exactly what we're after. Moy for obvious reasons. I think I wouldn't be surprised if Hogg stays in the Premier League next season. He's probably a Crystal Palace type player if I've ever seen one in there. The three of them in midfield are not too bad. That three in the middle. The problem is the other 7 outfielders round about them just aren't up to standard for the Premier League. It's just a shame, but that's what happens is the way the cookie crumbles. But anyway, speaking of cookie, I'm not sure we sell them on the boats, but the boats are open on Saturday. If you wish to join us for a beer and the burger, or both, before or after the game, then you can get your tickets. The link is in the description. Kids go free, as always. And we're not increasing kids' prices by 91% of that. And even if we were, 91% of zero is still zero. So you're okay there. No price increase for children on the Hamish Chat boat. So get your ticket. Link is in the description. Gonzo, Pellegrini did his comments earlier. There's nobody back that's been injured, etc. We've still got the same squad as players as last week, but he did say it may be time for Marko Arnautovic to return to his position. Would you make him correct on that?
I would. I was saying, I know we were going to do this preview earlier, and I was getting in mind my team, and he was one of the first names that sprang to mind. I do think when you have a performance like we've just had, it's very important that you shake things up a bit. And I would imagine he probably regretted not doing so, but you understand why you don't change a winning team. So I think there's a few places up for grabs, and we need to do something, and not for any desperation, but what we don't want the season to sort of peter out and into a whimper. And the higher we finish in the league, the more we can add to the transfer pot. So I would start with Arnautovic.
Would you be starting him in instead of Hernandez or alongside Hernandez?
That's a good one. That is a good one. We probably ought to be playing with 2 up, really, shouldn't we, against Huddersfield? But I may well start with him instead of Hernandez, because Nasri being back and Lanzini being back does sort of change the dynamic. You may well be able to actually get more creativity by having more playmakers in the team than having 2 strikers up front.
I would be dropping Hernandez as well, purely because of that dive against Cardiff City. Things like that need to be punished internally from football club as well, I think. I think you need to sort of, if you're going to cry about it when it happens to you, you need to be seen doing something to sort of combat it by your own side. Now, you don't get any points for playing fairly, but you don't want to turn into what Jurgen Klopp's turning into at Liverpool, where you're blaming everything and everyone except your own team, etc. So Hernandez deserves to be dropped. Arnautovic has to come in. Like you said, things need to be shaken up. Now, you said you don't change a winning team. Remember we did the preview last week? I know you weren't with me. I had Baz and Charlie, and I was saying Antonio has to come in for me. Antonio had to start because he was only rested against Newcastle. He wasn't dropped. He was rested. He was our most informed player. And when I didn't see him start against Cardiff, I thought, oh, no, this is criminal. He is another one that has to come straight back in. And for me, there's only the obvious. It's going to be obvious, but he has to come in for Snodgrass, in my opinion. What's your thoughts on Antonio?
I totally agree. That's what I thought of as well. I wonder if the other change will be the same. But actually, I've got 2. But anyway, I think that's the natural thing. We need to be getting set pieces for Snodgrass to do well. We know he's high energy, but if we're relying on high energy to beat Huddersfield Town, then we've got problems. We should be imposing our quality on them, not out muscling them. But having said that, our lack of battle has been a problem. But you know what? Snodgrass was in the team against Cardiff and we still had a lack of battle. So clearly having him in there and battling is not enough anyway. Actually, we've got to cause them some problems. We've got to put them on the back foot. And Antonio just causes people problems, doesn't he? So I would absolutely start him, mate.
Making up the midfield, is it Lanzini, Anderson, Rice, and
Noble? I'll still play Noble for this one.
Likewise, so we agree on all that. And time for the back 5 then. Fabianski will be in goal. Your back 4, please, Gonzo, because you've already revealed you've got a change in here somewhere.
2 changes.
I assume one of them's right back.
It is indeed. Zabaleta comes back for this one. I can't quite join in with the pomp and ceremony about Ryan Fredericks. I think there may be a player in there, but I think we're a little way off seeing it. He's got all the athletic capabilities in the world, Geo, but he lacks a bit of a football brain for me at the moment, a little bit of technique and positioning. And I'd like to see him get his head up, as I've mentioned a few times now. He's very much head down, and often when you do that, you miss the opportunities. And for that reason, I think I'd quite like to see Zabaleta, because he's just a little bit more savvy, a little smarter up top. Balbuena comes in for Ogbonna. I think that was such a shambolic display in defence. You can't take all of them out, granted. I also thought Diop didn't have his best game, but he did try and play his way back into it, and he did try and take control on a couple of occasions. And so it was a bad day at the office, really, for Ogbonna. So, yeah, Balbuena comes in, which will see Diop move to left centre-back, because Balbuena likes to play as the right centre-back.
Well, I agree with you, Balbuena thing. I don't think Ogbonna's done a lot wrong to get dropped, if you like, but Balbuena deserves to start, if that makes sense. So for me, Balbuena has to come in. It's a case of which one of you two is dropping out. And our long-term defensive partnership has to be Diop and Balbuena. So I think we need to start with that as soon as we possibly can, type thing, because we don't know if Ogbonna's going to be here next season. It's as simple as that. He's one of these players being touted with a move away. Well, let's not play with players that are not going to be here next season. Let's start, if we can get Balbuena and Diop playing with each other for the rest of the season, it just strengthens their partnership. So come August, they're both good to go. They're on the same wavelength, etc. The right back thing is an interesting one for me, because I thought Fredericks was poor against Cardiff. I was with Bez, and Bez was raging about Fredericks for the whole game. He thought he was really angry with Fredericks on Saturday. I can kind of see, and then when I watched the highlights again and seen Fredericks' attempt at back pass, which led to their second goal, I just bloody hell, like, what are you even doing? Why are you even attempting that pass? Even if you did it, gave it to Fabianski, that's why we lost. There was too much passes sideways and backwards, and nobody was wanting to take the game by the scruff of the neck. I think Zabaleta will do that. However, as I said in a cup of tea with Gonzo last night, if Zabaleta is not going to be here next season, I would play Johnson at right back, actually. I would just give the kid a chance and say, you know what? You're not going to get an easier opponent in the Premier League, full stop. He won't. It's Huddersfield at home, a team that have lost their last... they've not even scored in their last 5 away games. You're up against a left winger who, I don't even know who he is. This is a bit disrespectful, but I imagine he's probably in the bottom category of left wingers in the Premier League, for example. He's not going to get an easier game in a West Ham United shirt in a Premier League game. So I would be putting Johnson in and saying, well, we expect you. If you struggle, that's going to spell problems for you for your future at West Ham. So I would put Johnson in there, and I agree with the rest of your team. Are you confident for this one? I mean, we lost to Cardiff. We were awful against Cardiff, but it's Huddersfield. Yeah.
I have only ever seen West Ham beat Huddersfield. So I'm obviously a lucky omen. So
If it helps, we've played Huddersfield 3 times in Premier League, beat them twice and drawn once. Only Bradford City. Bradford City is the only other team we have sort of had a better unbeaten record against 4 times.
Yeah, and they looked absolutely useless. And obviously, I didn't go this season away to Huddersfield. So as far as I'm concerned, we're about to play an absolutely useless team, which is just as well, because we can only seem to get results against absolutely useless teams. And even then, we don't always get results. I think we will go in with the mindset that we should have had against Cardiff, because unfortunately, I think we need to get our arse spanked before we pick it up a notch. So I don't think the pep talk that Pellegrini gave, or the way the players went out against Cardiff, was actually good enough. So I think this is actually needed. So they're going to get a rocket up there. There will be changes to the team as well, which is actually, as I've seen it, that's the way Pellegrini motivates players. Maybe he's not doing a lot of shouting and screaming. Actually, he'll just drop you. And I like that about him. I think he's very, very good at doing that. I like what you said about Johnson as well, by the way. And since you changed it, I would also do that. I think that's a great shout. I am confident, Gio, yeah.
There's a lot of places up for grabs. Like you said, we'll expect changes, but those players are coming into the team, and even the ones that retain their spaces, such as Noble. The reason I said Rice because I didn't know if you'd keep Noble in, because I wouldn't have blamed you if you said I'll have Nasri set in midfield so we can get as many attacking players on the pitch as possible, etc. So even the players that start at Cardiff and start again, their shirts are still sort of half up for grabs. They need to put in a good performance if they want to start the following week against Everton, etc. West Ham need to show the fans on Saturday that the season isn't over yet. They are wanting to finish 7th. They are going to do their best to get as many points on the board and go after it as well. And there's a little bit of pressure on them in a way. You know, Rice has had his motivational boost with the England thing. I thought Lanzini and Anderson would have got one, but clearly not, because that was announced before the Cardiff game. So that was disappointing. If this was any of the other 18 teams in the Premier League, I think I'd probably say, I don't know, maybe a draw. But it's the worst team in the league who's got 14 points this season. Never scored an away goal in 5 games. I'd expect us to win just purely because they're that bad, if that makes sense. We should only have to sort of play 7 out of 10 and still get 3 points on Saturday. With all that in mind, can I get your final thoughts and your score prediction, please, Gonzo?
Yeah, I think really good point about Declan Rice. And I do believe he will respond to that because he's of that character. We're set for a massive game from Declan Rice because the eyes of the nation's press will be upon him. So I think we'll do well. I also think you mentioned Lanzini. I thought when Lanzini initially came back, I thought we saw the adrenaline. Maybe against Cardiff we saw the dip. But he'll come again, and I expect to see a better performance. It's another week's training for him in and around the other players. And I do think that Arnautovic is going to be motivated. I think he will start, and I think he'll be motivated if he does. That little stint off the bench is enough to have him stewing and sulking on the bench. This time, I think we'll go for it. I think we'll score early, and I think we might well win 3-0.
I'm going to go for 3-0 as well. At the end of the day, if it's not working against Huddersfield, we're going to have options on the bench to change it. And, Nasri, Hernandez, even Snodgrass to an extent, etc. It's not a bad bench to have if you're in need of getting a goal as well. But I almost want to say we'll see a motivated Anambich, but I'm not sure because I've said that about 4 times in the last 2 months and it's just never happened. The Wolves game said, Arnie's back, here we go. The geezer walked around as if he couldn't be arsed a little bit. And you've just got to hope at some point something clicks in his head that you're either here or you need to earn your move away. It's one of the two. You can't just not play this badly and stay at West Ham. You can't do that. That's not an option. So he's got to do something. The Lanzini thing against Cardiff, I think he's one of those players that if things aren't going right for him, he just puts his head down. He can't really be bothered a little bit. And I think that was the case against Cardiff. Cardiff put 2 banks of 5 players in essentially and said, what are you going to do? And we didn't really know what to do. If Huddersfield do that, then it could be a bit of a long game. But I'm like yourself. I think we'll score early and I think it'll be a comfortable 3-0 victory. But you guys at home, let us know what you think. Leave your team you would like to see. Me and Gonzo actually agree. It's not very often this happens. We agree perfectly. Well, apart from right back. Also, Gonzo sort of changed to Johnson half to do the show. So let us know who you would like to see at right back. You've got 3 options there. You've got the youngster and Johnson. You've got the old guy in Zabaleta who's sort of playing for his trigger contract for next season. Then you've got Ryan Fredericks who's coming for a little bit of criticism against Cardiff. Drop a like on the video if you enjoyed it. Subscribe if you're new around here. And we will see you